So I guess we should look at an analogy for the moment. If you look at the status of airports and train stations around the world, especially in those countries where there's still a severe lockdown, those stations are completely empty. The airports are closed in many cases, or running just freight flights at the moment. So if you imagine that all that traffic which is stopped in those train stations, on the freeways, in the airports, if you imagine all that traffic has gone onto the internet, then you can just imagine what's happening inside the data centers at the moment. There's a massive level of connectivity. All that information is going into the data centers, and the data center has, always been the airport of the internet. But I think there's two major issues in the data center industry. The first is preparedness of the operational teams to maintain the equipment and make sure the power and the cooling is all running. And the second thing is to deal with some increasing demand, especially from the cloud providers, to increase the capacity of their platforms. So that, if you're running a finance platform or gaming or video streaming or conference or whatever, if your current platform can only accommodate 1 million users, but you actually have 1.5 million logged in, then you need to be able to increase the capacity and size of your platform, otherwise it might fall over. That's a big question, because in markets like Russia, where capacity is very tight, this is a big issue, because capacity is being absorbed extremely quickly. And by September, October, there'll probably be nothing left in terms of data center capacity in Moscow. So it's a question of being very creative about how we can accommodate customers. We've done some initial research, and if you look specifically at our customer base, clearly, if you're a cloud business servicing the travel industry, then you're probably having some pretty tough times at the moment. But if you're in finance or conferencing services or any sort of work sharing, work optimization services, or if you're in gaming, for example, then all these services are growing incredibly fast. So it's basically getting more capacity into the data centers so that you can stream more films, you can store more information, and have more players on the platform. So in the current situation, the guidelines are pretty clear that the only people allowed in the data center at the moment are the critical personnel who are trained up to maintain the equipment in emergency situations. There have been some customers coming in for urgent installations. They obviously have to be very tightly controlled and checked, and there's a strict limitation on that. But we have been successfully installing new customers and new services during the lockdown. It's a much more controlled process than before. Even before the crisis, we had our 5 steps of physical security, and now we've added another 2 or 3 layers on the medical side on top of that. Well, I think in general the whole pandemic has sped up the adoption of new technologies, as I mentioned. What does that mean? It means there's more demand for data centers, but it also means that the reliance on data centers is more significant. Data centers become very much part of the critical infrastructure of the country. And so we're going to see a lot of new startups created adapting to this new environment.